Shalom, shalom, everybody. In the name of Yahushua Ha'Mashiach, all praises go to the Most High Yah. So I just want to come on this page, do a brief topic, give honor and praise to the Most High always. It gives us the understanding to share the information. This topic is going to be on the ruling powers on earth today. So the reason why this topic is so profound and so important, every topic in the scriptures are important. The reason why this is important is because as you see more things come to pass, we're not just talking about COVID, as you see more things happen on earth on a grand scale, okay, that the news media and people are going to be talking about different things that occur on earth, you must know who's in rulership. The Bible told us who would be in rulership. The Bible tells us how to deal with the nations that are in rulership. So you must know who the Most High gave this power to. Now, this specific topic is really good for ammunition when you're talking to naysayers of the scriptures, especially for those who say that either the Bible is man-made, it's made up. With a brief information we're about to cover, you can't make this up, especially a prophecy that's 2,500 years old, a prophecy that not only came to pass, that you see all the time. You're living in the midst of this prophecy all the time. And once again, this title of this brief lesson is called The Rulerships and Power Today. Now, I want to go share my screen, and I want to say one thing before we start this lesson. And this is not for my sake. This is more for your sake, okay? And it's important to do that sometime, because in the book, in the scriptures, Shaul, aka Paul, said that we subject ourselves to other people's conscience, not for our sake, it's really for their sake. Because, we understand the futility and the weakness of our flesh and our minds. And we understand how we have been deceived, man. So sometimes it's good to kind of break things down to a little scale before you bring out the meat, okay? So to start this thing off, I want to do that, We can go straight to the heat, but it's important to warm it up first because this is not a deep topic, just being honest with you. But it's a topic of high importance. So I want to start off in Acts 17, put everything in perspective. It says in Acts 17:24, let's start here. It says, Yah that made the world and all things therein, saying that he is the ruler of the earth and dwells not in temples made by hands. Neither is worship with man's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he gives light, giveth to all life and breath in all things. Verse 26, he is made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. And he has determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek him, if possibly they may feel after him and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. Verse 28, for in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, we are also his offspring. So Paul is talking to a group of Grecians, okay, about who Elohim is, how Elohim is true. He's even using their information to share it. He quoted from one of their prophets, poets, who have nothing to do with scripture. So what's my point? We understand, it says in Genesis, man, that Yah created the heavens and the earth. Let's go there real briefly. Be using this little app on my computer. It says in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, okay? We understand that. He made all things, and we come through one blood, all nations. And so as the Most High created the whole heavens and earth, it says in 27 here, and 26, Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. So what's the point I'm trying to get you to see? We do have our own individual choices that we make, and we can't blame anybody for the individual choices that we make. Because on the day of judgment, the Most High is going to bring out everything we've done. And we can't blame anybody for any evil that we have done ourselves, to ourselves, from ourselves to others. We can't blame nobody. Now, there is a system in place that makes it easy to access evil. And there is a system in place that makes it where they want you to turn against Elohim. And there is a rulership system in place in the earth today that wants you to turn against your Elohim. However, before we expose that, I want you to understand that you make your own personal choice, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, okay? It says here in Genesis 11, the whole earth was one language, one speech, okay? It was like that before, okay? So we all come from one person, okay? And as you go through the history of time, we all come from three people, either from the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, or Japheth. So we have our own personal choices. Now let's get to the point. Even though those things I said were true, there is still a rulership on earth today that bear rules, okay? Not only does this rulership bear rule, okay, they tell you how to view things, all right? They've colonized this whole world, all right? You see, in past time, people, before we go into the topic, the Most High had other nations in rulership. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Semiramis, okay? You had a lot of those at that time. They were the popular ones, according to the history of that time. You still had some other Hamitic nations that were not as popular, but they still kind of had some rulership. So it's a different shift now. It's a different dynamic. It's a change now. And this change has been around for over 2,000 plus years. In fact, this change has been around really since the Messiah died, okay? Now, I want to show you a scripture. I'm going to go to, well, not there. I'm going to go to Luke 21 now, all right? And then we're going to get to the topic. Then we're going to get into the topic at hand. Like I say, nothing real long-winded. Let's go to Luke 21, and then start at verse 24. It says here, okay? This is the Messiah speaking about what was going to happen to the lost tribes of Israel and what's going to happen to the nation that they were currently in. He said, they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive to all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down to the Gentiles, and to the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Gentiles means nation, means heathen, means the same thing. It just means another nation. That's all it means. It says that the city of Jerusalem will be trodden down by other nations. We're not talking about that. But I want to focus on this key thing. It said, until the times of the nations be fulfilled. So there's going to be a point of time in history where we're living in it right now, that other nations have to still bear rule on earth. And when I say bear rule, I'm not always talking about your individual choices, okay? I'm not just talking about that. Not doing slavery, that was different. But I'm talking about now. We're not talking about your personal choice that you make. Because if you decide to turn against Elohim, you can't blame nobody. I say that for a reason, all right? It's talking about the times of the Gentiles, meaning that rulership that's in place right now. And you see this rulership. Now, there's a prophecy in the book of Daniel, before we go into this history, that talks about this specific rulership. I'm not reading the whole book of Daniel to you. I'm only going to read the part that's speaking of this rulership today, because there were previous rulerships before this. Okay, now Daniel was written about 2,500 years ago. For all you naysayers, do your research. Even archaeologists have admitted to this. Now, a lot of them may not still believe in the book, but they cannot deny that this was written. Okay, it's a fact. Anyway, so let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Now in Daniel, well, sorry, not Daniel 7, Daniel 2. Now in Daniel 2, he speaks about a fourth kingdom, okay, that's going to bear rule on earth until the time of Messiah, until he returns. There's going to be a rulership system and a collection of nations that's in power, that's going to bring not only the power on earth, they're going to help usher in the anti-Messiah and a one world government, okay? The book says it, not me. Let's get to the history. I want you to read this on your own time, okay? Read this whole thing on your own time. I'm going to read you the part that's talking about the fourth kingdom, okay? And bring it to today and let you see who these collection of nations it is talking about. So let's go to Daniel chapter 2. We're going to go straight to the interpretation of the dream that he had for King Nebuchadnezzar. Backstory for Daniel. Daniel was a prophet and a slave in captivity of another Negroid, Hamite, well, not Hamite, Shemitic type of nation at this time, but they were still Negroid, okay? And he was in captivity. So it just kind of shows you that we're not, this whole captivity thing and slavery thing, it wasn't just limited to the European structure part. You know, other nations were doing that. It got worse when they touched it. We'll talk about that later though. Okay, anyway, let's go to Daniel 2, and we're going to start at verse, let me see a good verse to start at. We're going to start at verse 40. So Daniel 2, and I just want to focus on the fourth kingdom. Verse 40 says this, and the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. For as much as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things, as iron that breaks all these shall break in pieces and bruise. Now this is a prophecy that he sees in the future about this fourth kingdom. Verse 41. He said, where thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Now, remember these things, people. But there should be in it the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest iron mixed with myrrh clay. Now, iron is very strong, people. Verse 42. And as the toes and the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom should be partly strong and partly broken. And wherein thou saw iron mixed with myrrh clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of man, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Verse 44. In the days of these kings, so the Elohim of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. So what's going to happen is, while this fourth kingdom is in rulership, it's going to be a period of time where it's going to end. And it says in verse 44, the days of these kings shall the Elohim set up a kingdom. So it's going to be during the days of the fourth kingdom rulership. Let's give you some more details about this fourth kingdom I was talking about. Okay. Go to Daniel 7 and 23. It's giving you a little more details about this same fourth kingdom. And then we're going to talk about the history of who this is. And we know it's this nation and these collection of nations. There's no other answer. And we're going to show you according to history. Anyway, Daniel 7 and 23 says, thus he said, the fourth kingdom, the fourth beast, should be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth and tread it down and break it in pieces. So this kingdom is going to devour the whole earth and break it down in pieces. I want you to really start thinking. Verse 24. And the 10 horns out of these kingdoms are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be diverse from the first. He shall subdue 3 kings. Now, I'm not going to get into that subject. That's a different subject, and that can be kind of complex for some. So we're dealing with the first verse. Okay, it's very important because the other verses deal with some other dynamics that we're not talking about today. I want to focus on this one simplicity, verse 23. It said that fourth kingdom is going to be diverse, okay? And it's going to devour the whole earth and break it in pieces. It's speaking of a collection of nations, okay? Let's go to this map now. We're going to see who this is talking about. Let's go into the backstory first, though. So the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire were really the start of the ideology of Western civilization, historical fact, right? So you got the Roman Empire, and they bear rule in that region. After Messiah died, they had a hold of the scriptures, okay? Because the children of Israel temple was destroyed and they got scattered to different parts of the world. Africa, Europe, the Middle East, they were scattered. So they didn't have a hold of the scrolls like they used to. So the Europeans got a hold of the scrolls, okay? We'll talk about that a little later. So throughout this time, the Roman Empire was in rulership. But during the period of the Roman Empire, as they was in rulership, something occurred, and you learned this in school. It was called the invasion of the Roman Empire from the barbaric tribes of Northern Europe. Now, remember what the prophecy said. The prophecy said that they're going to mingle among the seed of man. They're not going to cleave to one another. They're going to be as strong as iron. We're going to show you how this is talking about the Roman Empire. And all of the so-called Bible theologians and historians have agreed, they read this book that was speaking of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire destroyed the temple of the Jewish, so-called Jewish people, the Israelites, okay? They destroyed the temple, right? Anyway, so that's, look at this map right here, and it says here, look at this, Franks, the Huns, these are the northern tribes you learned about, the Vikings, all that, the whole ideology of those movies. Now, what makes this so interesting, how this really brings out scripture, is because when these northern European tribes came to southern Europe, they were different. They were a different breed. Okay, they show you in the movies, but they were much fierce. They were vicious. Okay, they would rape people. They would eat raw food. They were vicious people. And even the historians in Southern Europe were right about these people, man. They were different, but they were able to come to these regions and take over the Roman Empire. This is when the strength got stronger. So the Roman Empire was strong already. Then when you had these northern European tribes come down, it has to fit that prophecy about they're going to mingle among the seed of man. These northern tribes start coming down to southern Europe. Okay, this is a historical fact. This is where the strength of Europe started. Why do you think Many years after this, these same nations in these regions right here, just keep this in mind. This is like Spain. This is England. Remember that. This is Italy right here. We got to understand these things. Let's go into this map now. So as this, and also during this time, this is when some of these northern tribes, I would say, got more civilized because they start to follow Roman Catholicism and formats of Christianity to calm them down a little bit. But let's go to the history now. Let's go to this map now. So remember, the strength came from here. The Roman Empire started here, and these Northern European tribes came here. Remember this. Now, what did the prophecy say in Daniel 7? It said the fourth beast should tread the whole world in pieces, okay? It's going to be fierce. Now, I want you to look at this map. You see this map right here? You see Europe. This is Europe. This is Russia, but this is Europe. Now, I want you to look at the colors on this map. It says countries that have been under European control. The green color is colonized or controlled by Europe. The light blue color is partial European control. The kind of yellowish color is European influence. And this kind of orangey reddish color is never colonized by Europe. Look at this map. Now we understand in history the other Hamitic tribes were in rulership and doing different things. We understand that. But this has never been a time in history where a small collection of nations who makes up about a few, probably like less than a billion, can come to different parts of the world and not only come with the same message. Let's go into the history. Remember what happened with Christopher Columbus? He came to the Western world. That's nothing though. They colonized Africa, South America, Central America, North America, Canada, Australia, Pacific Islands, India, parts of China, the so-called Middle East. I want you to really think about that. How could a collection of nations so small colonize the whole universe? Because the Bible said it would happen, okay? Now, here's the thing about this colonization, people. This is history. They didn't just colonize it through shaking hands and kissing people. They did some vicious things. We know what they did to the slaves, okay? And they brought us, our people, to the west coast of Africa. That's why we have no roots. That's why we have no history to understand. We have no language because they brought us, our people, not that long ago to this part of the world, okay? It's very simple. I know that in the word they talk about it's a long time ago, but in scripture, the Most High will bring up things that happened a long time ago to the children of Israel. So in the book of Acts, Stephen in the book of Acts brought up Egypt, and that was like 1,800 years prior. Why are you bringing up something from 1,800 years ago, Stephen? Simple as that. Slavery was what, 20 years ago? Oh, it's old. You can't bring it up, right? But the scriptures, the Most High bringing up stuff from 1,800, 3,000 years ago to the people. Different subject, though. Anyway, so you got slavery. You got the genocide of the natives. But here's the thing about the history. It's not just the natives in North America and South America. Don't forget about Australia and the Aborigines. Don't forget about the brothers in Africa as well, and the colonizations of that region as well, people. Don't forget about these things, all right? Don't forget about what happened to the brothers in India, okay? The brothers in the Pacific Island, okay? They came with a message, Christianity. They came to conquer. They came to view the land. They came to take over the land, and they gave gifts in the process, and they killed many in the process. This was prophecy. Now, here's the thing about this. They don't want you bringing this up. You can't bring this up. These are the same people that read the Bible, and they see throughout scripture, the Most High showed the good that Israel did and also the evil. He left it in the book. He brought up the evil that happened 1,500 years ago. Yet, they take over the whole world. We show the history and the prophecy associated with it. And now, this information either can be considered racist to some or mean. This is the type of stuff that we have to share with the people, man, because you need to understand who's in power so you understand who your fight is with. Your fight is not with them. This is all orchestrated by the enemy, but the Most High allows it because this is a part of prophecy. So stop following their agendas. This is a part of prophecy. Listen, it's said in Daniel 7, they're going to cleave to one another, all right? Some's going to be partly strong and some's going to be partly broken. Look at this map. That's why you see now in America, we're very strong in America, right? America came out of England. England was part of the Roman Empire, okay? America is very strong. It's probably certain nations in Spain is not as strong as America. Australia is not as strong as America. You know, parts of South America is not as strong as America, but it's still strong though. These nations that Europeans took over, they're strong. They didn't really take over all of Africa. They just colonized and took the resources. And they still do that today. You know? But we can't bring that up though, because they're in rulership. Of course you can't bring up something when they're the ones in rulership, controlling the media, controlling the narratives, controlling everything. You can't bring it up. Yet if you're reading this Bible and you're going over history and trying to bring out understanding to the people, you got to bring it up. Okay? And you got to show the people the purpose of this is not to be talking about Europeans like that. It's about showing you how the Bible's real and how that stuff will happen. This is the purpose of the subject. Because this ain't just about, oh man, look, see how wicked they are and we're not. Now, we all wicked. We all need the blood of Messiah. But we're dealing with the topic of history. And it says, according to this book, it says that Luke 21:24, and to the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. In 1948, the leader nations told the Jews that came out of Europe to return to the land. And they say that fit biblical prophecy. No, it fit their narrative and their prophecy. Because their prophecy is to take over the whole world and shred it in pieces and bring about agendas, okay? And they have been doing that since the inception of that prophecy, okay? It's very simple. This is why you see this map. And this is why it's so hard for a lot of people that come from these nations, the collection of nations of sons of Japheth, Europeans. It's hard from this standpoint. They can believe in the Bible. They can follow the scriptures. They can do those things, okay? However, when it comes to history, they always want to cling to their forefathers. But if you read the Bible, people, and Ruth, she came out of a mighty nation. But when she came to serve the Elohim of this Bible, guess what she did? She forgot about the Elohim of the Elohim of her people and came to the Elohim of this Bible, okay? You know what it says in Ephesians 2:19? So this is the problem when it comes to the other nations coming to the knowledge. They don't understand this. They still want to cling to their forefathers. You can't do that. It says in Ephesians 2:19, therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints in the household of Yah. So you're part of the house of Israel now. You're grafted in. You don't belong to these other nations no more. You don't belong to these nations. The Most High has these nations in rulership right now. He got plans for them, okay? They got rulership right now. Also, if you read Daniel 2:7, it talks about how they're going to change times and laws. Let me go over this real quick. This is how you know the scriptures are real. This map here is the Roman Empire map. It says March, April, May, June, August. This is their calendar, okay? Our calendar comes from Rome as well, too. We use the Gregorian calendar. Told you this ain't no hard information to find, people. Wikipedia, come on now. We're not smart. Look, Pope Gregory, 1582. It's the Roman calendar. We're living in the Roman Empire still, people. Just bigger, it's more diverse, it's more expanded. That's what Daniel 7 said, people. What did Daniel 7 say? It said it's going to divide the whole earth, shred it down, break it in pieces. This is what happened. When the Europeans came out of this little small region with the little northern barbaric tribe mixed in together, they came over, they took over the world. And now when you bring it up, you can't even bring it up. We ain't even going to the things they did in Africa, the genocides they caused. Now, this video is not trying to say that Europeans are the only ones that cause evil on earth. We're not going to say that. We all make our own individual choices. There's been a lot of evil orchestrated by a lot of different nations. We're talking about the grand scale things, okay? When it comes to the grand scale, when it comes to the agendas, it's going to come from them. It's very simple. One last thing and we're done, people. I want to show y'all a few things, though. Watch this. So I'm just going to go on my Google search. Let you know we ain't that smart. We're not smart at all. But what do you think about when you think of the United Nations, okay? Who are they? The United Nations is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace, okay? They're headquartered in New York City. It was started by European powers, the United Nations. Who gave them authority to make decisions for the whole world? The Most High did. World Health Organization, okay? Let's keep going. Look, I can go over this whole list right here, but I'm not. But look at this. The World Health Organization is a specialized agency of the United Nations responsible for international public health. They're in where? Europe, Switzerland. The power comes from Europe, people. It's very simple. The World Bank, the central bank system, okay? You can name anything, NATO. You can think of any, like, you know, United Nations General Assembly, that GM Summit type stuff, International Monetary Fund. I mean, man, it's just so many things you can think of when it comes to globalization of sanctions and things like that. The strength comes from Europe. America, strength came from Europe. You came out of England. So even though, yes, it's American, they got that American pride and all that patriotic stuff, that's all cool for those people. But understand that stuff came from Europe still. America came out of England, whether you like it or not. The strength comes from Rome. There's no way around it. The Bible's true. The Bible's real. Remember, this is the same collection of nations that gave you Christianity, okay? They gave you the format of Christianity. They gave you their persuasion of Christianity, people. They told you don't read the laws of Elohim because they don't read the laws of Elohim. They told you just it's okay to eat swine because it's okay for them to eat swine. They told you the Sabbath day don't matter because they don't care about the Sabbath day. This is the message they gave you. Everything stems from these European powers when it comes to world agendas. That's why when they colonized different parts of the world, they brought Christianity, okay? And all praises go to the Most High. They still got a hold of the scriptures and kept track of them because the Most High can use anybody. It's sad, man, because these collection of nations, the Most High is allowing them to do a lot of evil, man. They don't see it. They're puffed up. They think it's about them. Why do you think, even when it comes to this vaccine, who's telling you how to deal with this vaccine? Who? It's not us. Who's telling you what to do? Who's telling you what to do when it comes to anything as it pertains to the world? In 2030, the UN global initiatives. Let's go to that real quick. Told you we're not that smart, man. Look at this. This is a Google search. Something you can do. We're not that smart, people. Look at this. Sustainable Development Goals. This comes from the UN, people. They have a specific system in place where they want to have goals for the whole world. What if other nations don't want to do your goals? Who are you to say we should have goals? Look at this. 17 goals for people, for the planet. Who the heck you think you is telling people? Some people may not want to do this, but the Most High put them in power, okay? And we got to understand this. See what they want to do? Good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. So all this is saying, you know, some of this stuff sound pretty, right? Life below water. But you don't understand, man. It's a greater agenda at hand. We're going by prophecy. What's the most important thing? Anything dealing with world powers, world decisions, is coming from you. They're in power. They don't know it though. Well, some of them do know. Now you even got these same nations saying that it's a threat coming from the sky now, and they must prepare for it. And we know what the book of Revelation talk about, Messiah's coming out the sky. So who are they preparing for? So whose side are you really on? Are you on the Father's side? Or are you on the world side? Okay. I'm not about to be on the fourth kingdom side. I'm gonna live in the fourth kingdom. I'm gonna live among these nations. I'm not on their side though. I'm on Elohim's side. I'm standing up for Elohim. And so we must bring this information to the people. So I didn't even bring up more details about slavery because that's a different subject. You know, prophecies associated with that. It's a different subject. I just wanted to kind of share with y'all, man, like who's in power right now. You can't deny it. And so for some of you, you know, there's a lot of Pan-Africans out there that be on that, man, the white man, this and that. That's all you know, but you only understand the scripture talked about this, okay? And at the end of the day, let's conclude this thing with the right understanding. You can't really blame, at the end of the day, between you and Elohim. Yeah, we get this information about what's going on, the power structure, the rulership. You still got to take control over your own self and make the right decisions and come to Elohim, okay? It's very simple. You still got to make a decision. You got to make a decision to come to Yahushua. See that name right there? Messiah Yahushua. That's your personal choice. So even though the Most High has put these rulerships in place, okay, for a specific reason, and we know that a lot of people are deceived, not knowing what's going on, can't blame them on the day of judgment. You got to come to them. It's very simple. I'll close out with this scripture because in 1 Peter chapter 2, it's a kind of a good scripture to remind us how we all must conduct ourselves, believers in Yahushua among these nations. He says this, 1 Peter 2:12, have your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that when they speak evil against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify Yahweh in the day of visitation. So we must live honest among these nations, no matter who's in rulership, and make sure we continue to teach others who Elohim is and win others to Elohim through our actions, through our words and what we teach. But we ain't cutting no corners. They in rulership, they in power, they telling you what to do. And for those of you who are part of those nations, man, give it up, man. Give it up. Stop talking about my forefathers in America. They are your forefathers, but you're supposed to read the Bible now. Now, if you ain't into the Bible, you can say what you want to say. But if you're reading this Bible, man, what are you talking about your forefathers? Your forefathers killed many people and they brought slaves. And they created a world Christianity for themselves only. What are we talking about here? That's perverted judgment. So you're going to cling to some stuff like that, knowing that they wiped out people and brought slaves and they created a Christian world for themselves. And you want to keep pushing that this country is built on Christianity when it's always been a secular nation. And it's actually a good thing that it is a secular nation for our sakes so that we can keep serving Elohim and getting the message out. You want this nation to be a Christian nation? They're not really dealing with the Bible like that. So what kind of Christian nation is going to be? You're still about to be eating swine. They're going to force Sunday worship on you. You ain't going to be able to serve Elohim in spirit and truth. So let these people be secular so we can serve Elohim and make our decisions. Let other religions do what they're going to do so we can keep serving Elohim and getting the message out. So all praises go to Yah through his son, Yahushua Ha'Mashiach. Until next time, Shalom.